What would you do if your own wedding became a stage for betrayal and everyone blamed you? When my wife shamed me in front of both our families, I stayed calm and patient. But quietly, I planned my lawful revenge, serving her with legal papers before our honeymoon could even begin. The morning after our wedding should have been perfect. Instead, I stood in our kitchen at 7:30 a.m., watching my new wife Layla ignore me while her phone buzzed like an angry wasp on the granite countertop. "Good morning, Mrs. Maris," I said, trying to inject some warmth into my voice as I cracked eggs into a bowl. The title felt foreign on my tongue, but I'd been looking forward to saying it for months. Layla didn't look up from her phone. Her dark hair fell across her face like a curtain, hiding whatever was making her smile at the screen. "Mm-hmm," she mumbled, thumb scrolling rapidly. I whisked the eggs harder than necessary. "Sleep well? I thought we could talk about the honeymoon plans over breakfast. The flight to Maui isn't until— Quilon, seriously?" She finally glanced up, her green eyes cold. "Can you not see I'm busy?" My daughter Elsie wandered into the kitchen, still in her flower girl dress from yesterday, now wrinkled and stained with chocolate cake. At 6 years old, she had an uncanny ability to sense tension between adults. "Daddy, why is Mommy mad at you?" she asked, climbing onto her usual stool at the breakfast bar. "She's not mad, sweetheart. Just tired from the big day yesterday." I poured orange juice into her favorite cup, the one with dancing elephants around the rim. "How about some scrambled eggs?" Layla's phone buzzed again. This time, she actually giggled at whatever message had arrived. The sound grated against my nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Who's texting so early?" I asked, keeping my tone casual as I started cooking the eggs. "Just Jessa and the girls. They're sharing photos from last night." Layla's thumb moved across the screen. "Oh my God, look at this one." She turned the phone toward her sister Piper, who had emerged from the guest room looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Piper's blonde hair stuck up at odd angles, and yesterday's mascara had migrated to somewhere around her cheekbones. Piper squinted at the screen and burst into laughter. "Oh no, they got the one where you and Ethan were dancing. You two look so good together." My hand tightened on the spatula. Ethan Niles, 29 years old, personal trainer, and apparently my wife's new favorite dance partner. I'd watched them together at the reception, her hands on his shoulders, his arms around her waist, both of them laughing like they shared some private joke. "Ethan's such a good dancer," Layla said, still scrolling. "Unlike some people who shall remain nameless." She shot me a pointed look. I'd asked her to dance exactly once during our own wedding reception. She'd complained that I was too stiff, too boring, that I was embarrassing her in front of her friends. "Dad doesn't dance good?" Elsie asked, looking between us with worried eyes. "Daddy doesn't dance well," I corrected gently, transferring eggs to her plate. "And that's okay. Not everyone has to be good at everything." Layla snorted. "Tell that to your wedding speech. Thank you all for coming to celebrate this wonderful day with Layla and me. I'm grateful for this opportunity to join our families together." She mimicked my voice in a monotone that made me sound like a robot. "God, Keelan, you sounded like you were giving a quarterly report at work." Piper giggled. "Remember when he thanked everyone for their attendance and participation in this matrimonial event?" I thought Mom was going to die of secondhand embarrassment. Heat crept up my neck. I'd practiced that speech for weeks, wanting to get it right, wanting to honor both our families properly. Apparently, I'd failed spectacularly. "I thought it was nice," Elsie said quietly, stabbing at her eggs with a fork. "That's because you're 6 and don't know any better," Piper said, then caught my warning look. I mean, it was very professional. Layla's phone buzzed again. She read the message and her smile widened. "Ethan says last night was wild, and he wishes he could see me again soon." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my coffee cup carefully, fighting the urge to grab her phone and read the entire conversation. "That's nice," I managed. "I'm sure you'll see him at the gym. Actually, he invited me to lunch today. Just as friends, of course." She finally looked at me directly, challenge in her eyes. "You don't mind, do you? I mean, we're married now. You trust me, right?" The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Elsie's quiet chewing. Piper watched us like she was at a tennis match. head swiveling between her sister and me. Of course I trust you, I said, though the words tasted like ash. You're my wife. Exactly. Your wife. Not your property. Layla stood up, phone clutched in her hand. I'm going to shower and get ready. Piper, want to come with me to lunch? You could meet Ethan properly. Sure. Piper bounced up, suddenly energized. I love meeting your hot gym friends. They disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with Elsie and the wreckage of what should have been our first morning as a married couple. Daddy? Elsie's voice was small. Are you sad? I looked at my daughter, this perfect little person who deserves so much better than watching her father get humiliated at the breakfast table. No, sweetheart, just thinking about work stuff. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was thinking about work, specifically about the spreadsheet I'd started on my laptop last week. Nothing dramatic, just a simple document with dates, times, and observations. The kind of methodical record keeping that had made me successful as an operations manager at Hartwell Logistics. I pulled out my phone and made a quick note. Sunday, 7:45 a.m. Text from Ethan. Last night was wild. Wish I could see you again. Lunch plans made immediately after. Upstairs, I could hear Layla and Piper laughing about something. The sound echoed through the house like mockery. Can we go to the park later? Elsie asked, apparently deciding to move past the adult weirdness surrounding her. Of course. After I take care of some paperwork. I ruffled her hair, soft and fine like her mother's had been. Her biological mother, Sarah, who died in a car accident 3 years ago. Sarah, who would never have treated me like an inconvenience on the morning after our wedding. I finished my eggs and started cleaning up, moving through the familiar motions of loading the dishwasher and wiping down counters. Normal domestic tasks that felt surreal after yesterday's ceremony and last night's humiliation. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder I'd set last week. Meeting. Personal. Balcony. 7:30 a.m. I'd forgotten about that. A reminder to check in with myself, to assess where things stood now that the wedding was over and real life had begun. Well, real life was certainly beginning. Monday morning at Hartwell Logistics started like any other day, except for the fact that half my coworkers had apparently spent their weekends scrolling through social media photos of my wedding. Hey, Quillen, called out Janet from accounting as I walked past her cubicle. Saw the wedding pics on Facebook. Looked like quite a party. I forced a smile and kept walking toward my office. Thanks, Janet. It was a good time. What I didn't mention was that I'd seen those same photos. Jessa had tagged me in about 30 of them, including several where Layla was dancing with Ethan, while I stood awkwardly in the background looking like a rejected prom date. My phone had been pinging with notifications all weekend. Comments like, Layla looks so happy, and who's the hottie she's dancing with? And my personal favorite, Quion, you might want to keep an eye on your wife. LOL. That last one had come from my cousin Derek, who thought he was hilarious. I settled into my desk chair and opened my laptop, determined to focus on work. We had a major shipment going out to Portland this week, and the logistics coordination required my full attention. Instead, I found myself opening that spreadsheet again, the one I'd titled Personal Records, and hidden in a folder marked Quarterly Reports 2024. Sunday's entries were brief but factual. 7:45 a.m. Text from Ethan visible on Elle's phone. 12:30 p.m. Elle leaves for lunch with Ethan and Piper. 4:15 p.m. Elle returns, mentions having such a good time. 6:20 p.m. Elle takes phone call in garage, speaks quietly for 20 minutes. 8:45 p.m. Elle says she's too tired. When I suggest we talk about honeymoon plans, I added a new entry for this morning. Monday, 8:15 a.m. Overheard Janet mention wedding photos on social media. Quion? I minimized the spreadsheet and looked up to find Marcus Lee standing in my doorway. Marcus worked in our freight coordination department and had been my closest friend at the company for the past 3 years. He was also one of the few people who'd seemed genuinely happy for me when I'd announced my engagement to Layla. Hey, Marcus, what's up? He stepped into my office and closed the door behind him, which immediately put me on alert. Marcus was normally a pretty casual guy who conducted most conversations in hallways or the break room. Listen, man, I don't know if this is my place, but he sat down in the chair across from my desk, looking uncomfortable. I saw some of those wedding photos online. My stomach dropped. Okay, look, I'm probably overreacting, but some of the comments people were making, they weren't great. About you, I mean. I kept my face neutral, though my hands clenched into fists under the desk. What kind of comments? Stupid stuff. You know how people are on social media. But there was this one thread where people were basically making jokes about you being, he paused, searching for the right words, about you being left out of your own wedding. The words hit harder than I'd expected. I'd seen some of the comments myself, but hearing them summarized by a friend made them feel more real, more humiliating. I appreciate you telling me, I said carefully, but people always talk. It doesn't mean anything. Marcus leaned forward. Quion, I've known you for 3 years. You're one of the most solid guys I've ever met. You don't deserve to be treated like a joke, especially not at your own wedding. Before I could respond, my office phone rang. The caller ID showed our HR department. I need to take this, I told Marcus, who nodded and stood to leave. Just think about getting some advice, okay? Legal advice. I've got a friend who's a lawyer if you need a referral. He left, closing the door behind him, and I answered the phone. Quilon, this is Ms. Rowan from HR. Could you come down to my office when you have a moment? Nothing urgent, just want to chat about something. Linda Rowan had been our HR manager for 15 years. In my experience, when Linda wanted to chat about something, it usually meant someone had complained about something or someone had done something that could potentially create liability for the company. I'll be right down, I said. Her office was on the second floor, decorated with motivational posters about teamwork and professional excellence. Linda was in her early 50s with graying hair and the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that made even senior management think twice before crossing her. Have a seat, Quilon. And congratulations on your wedding, by the way. I saw some lovely photos. Thank you. She folded her hands on her desk. I wanted to talk to you about something that came to my attention this morning. It seems some employees have been discussing your wedding on social media during work hours, making comments, sharing posts, that sort of thing. My face burned. I see. Now, I want to be clear that you haven't done anything wrong. But when personal matters start affecting workplace productivity and morale, I have to step in. I've had 3 separate employees tell me they were distracted by the conversation happening around these posts. I understand. I'll ask my wife to adjust her privacy settings so coworkers can't see the photos. Linda's expression softened slightly. Quillen, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I also can't have employees spending their Monday morning making memes about other employees' personal lives. Memes. They were making memes about my wedding. What kind of memes? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. She turned her computer monitor toward me. On the screen was a Facebook post from someone named Tyler in our shipping department. It showed a photo from my wedding reception, me standing alone by the cake table while Layla danced with Ethan in the background. Someone had added text that read, "When you're at your own wedding, but you're not the main character." It had 47 likes and 12 comments, including several from other Hartwell employees. I've asked Tyler to remove the post, Linda said gently, and I'll be sending out a reminder about our social media policy. But I wanted you to know what was happening so you could address it on your end if needed. I stared at the image for another moment, memorizing the details. The timestamp showed it had been posted at 8:23 a.m., less than an hour ago. The comments ranged from laughing emojis to more pointed observations about my awkward body language and Layla's obvious chemistry with her dance partner. I appreciate you handling this professionally, I said, standing up. I'll make sure it doesn't become a distraction again. Quillen? Linda's voice stopped me at the door. If you ever need to talk to someone, our employee assistance program includes counseling services. Confidential, no cost to you. I nodded and left her office, walking slowly back to the elevator. In the span of one morning, I'd gone from newlywed to office joke. By the time I reached my floor, I'd made a decision. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and navigated to a legal services website Marcus had mentioned once. I filled out a consultation request form, providing basic information about my situation and my need for family law guidance. Then I returned to my spreadsheet and added a new entry. Monday, 9:15 a.m., HR meeting reach, social media posts about wedding, memes being shared by coworkers. I also created a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Documentation, and saved screenshots of Tyler's post before it could be deleted. My phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Having coffee with Ethan before his next client. He says hi. I added that to the spreadsheet too. Thursday evening, Layla announced she was going out to celebrate her friend Jess's promotion at some new club downtown. She'd been talking about it all week, mentioning how everyone would be there and how she needed a night to decompress from wedding stress. You should come, she said, though her tone suggested she hoped I'd decline. It'll be fun, dancing, drinks, good music. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing shipping manifests for Friday's Portland run. Will Ethan be there? Probably. He's friends with some of Jess's crowd. She was applying lipstick in the hallway mirror, not meeting my eyes. Why? Just wondering. Sure, I'll come. It's been a while since we went out together. Her hand paused mid-application. Really? I mean, you hate clubs. You always say the music's too loud and the drinks are overpriced. Maybe it's time I tried to enjoy the things you enjoy, I said, closing my laptop. We are married now. She finished her lipstick and turned to face me. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. The black dress hugged her curves perfectly, and she'd done something different with her hair that made her green eyes pop. She looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 2 years ago, before things had gotten complicated. Okay, she said slowly, but don't be all weird and possessive. It's supposed to be a fun night. When have I ever been possessive? She gave me a look that suggested the question was rhetorical. The club was everything I'd expected and worse. The music was so loud I could feel it in my chest. The drinks were indeed overpriced, and the crowd was at least 10 years younger than me. I felt like someone's dad who'd wandered into the wrong venue. Layla immediately found her group of friends near the bar. Jessa squealed and hugged her like they hadn't seen each other in years instead of days. Piper was there too, along with several other women I recognized from various social gatherings over the past 2 years. And Ethan, of course. He was wearing a fitted black t-shirt that showed off the results of whatever workout routine he'd been following, and his dark hair was styled in that deliberately messy way that probably took 20 minutes to achieve. When he saw Layla, his face lit up like she was the answer to every question he'd ever had. Layla, you made it! He pulled her into a hug that lasted several seconds too long, his hands resting on her lower back. You look incredible. Thanks. You clean up pretty well yourself. She stepped back but kept one hand on his arm. You remember my husband, Quillen? Ethan's smile faltered slightly. Oh, right. Hey, man. Didn't expect to see you here. Thought I'd try something new, I said, shaking his offered hand. His grip was firm, probably stronger than necessary. Thanks for dancing with Layla at the wedding. She had a great time. Yeah, she's an amazing dancer. Really knows how to move. His eyes flicked back to her, and she actually blushed. I ordered a beer and found a spot along the wall where I could observe without being in the way. The group migrated to the dance floor, and I watched my wife transform into someone I barely recognized. With Ethan, she was animated, laughing, sensual in a way she hadn't been with me in months. They moved together like they'd been practicing, his hands on her hips, her arms around his neck. The space between them disappeared entirely during slow songs. I pulled out my phone and opened my voice memo app. Thursday, 10:47 p.m., Club Nexus downtown. Layla and Ethan dancing. Very close contact, intimate body language. Duration approximately 15 minutes continuous. Other patrons taking notice. I stopped recording and put my phone away. Around me, the crowd pulsed and swayed to music I didn't understand. While 20 feet away, my wife ground against another man like I didn't exist. Hey, aren't you the groom from those wedding photos? I turned to find a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings smiling at me with what looked like pity. Excuse me? The Facebook posts, you're married to the brunette, right? The one dancing with the trainer guy? She gestured toward the dance floor. That's got to be rough, man. Before I could respond, she was gone, swallowed back into the crowd. But her words echoed in my head. Random strangers at a club recognized me from social media posts about my own wedding. The humiliation was spreading beyond my workplace, beyond my family, into the general population of people who found my situation entertaining. I looked back at the dance floor. Ethan had his hands on Layla's waist, and she was laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. Someone's phone camera flashed, capturing the moment. That's when I knew I was done. I finished my beer, walked over to the group, and tapped Layla on the shoulder. I'm heading home, I said, speaking loudly to be heard over the music. Early meeting tomorrow. She barely glanced at me. Okay, I'll get a ride with Jessa. Or I could drive you, Ethan offered immediately. I'm staying sober tonight. That's so sweet of you, Layla said, touching his chest. Thanks. I looked around the group. Piper was filming the interaction with her phone, probably for another social media post. Jessa was watching with undisguised glee, like she was witnessing some kind of romantic drama. None of them seemed to find anything inappropriate about the situation. Have fun, I said, and left. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a few minutes, letting the silence wash over me after hours of pounding music. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. How was the club? You survive? I typed back, you were right about the lawyer. His response came immediately. I'll send you his contact info tomorrow. Hang in there, man. I drove home through empty streets, past late-night diners and gas stations, thinking about the woman with purple hair and her casual observation about my situation. If strangers could see what was happening, if it was obvious enough to be entertainment for people who didn't even know me, then I was kidding myself by pretending things might get better. At home, I checked on Elsie, who was sleeping peacefully in her room, surrounded by stuffed animals and the glow of her princess nightlight. She looked so innocent, so trusting. She deserved better than parents who humiliated each other in public. I went to my office and opened my laptop. The spreadsheet was getting longer, more detailed. I added Thursday's entries, including the timestamps and the fact that strangers had recognized me from social media. Then, I opened a new browser window and searched for divorce lawyers near me. It was 2:17 a.m. when I finally heard Layla come home. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of the bathroom door closing, the whisper of sheets as she got into bed. She didn't check on me in the office. She didn't say goodnight. She didn't even seem to wonder if I was still awake. I set a calendar reminder for 10 a.m. the next day. Community center, personal. Elsie's 7th birthday fell on a Saturday, 2 weeks after the club incident. I'd been planning the party for months, a small family gathering at Giuseppe's, the Italian restaurant where Layla and I had our first date. Nothing fancy, just immediate family and a few of Elsie's friends from school. What I hadn't planned on was Ethan showing up as Layla's plus one. I hope you don't mind, Layla said as we gathered in the restaurant's private dining room. Ethan was free this afternoon, and I thought it would be nice for him to meet more of the family. She said this while adjusting Ethan's collar, a gesture so intimate and automatic that several family members exchanged glances. My father Alan cleared his throat. Well, the more the merrier, I suppose. Layla's mother Marjorie beamed at Ethan like he was a visiting dignitary. How wonderful. Layla's told us so much about you. You're the personal trainer, right? That's right, Mrs. Kearney. I specialize in functional fitness and nutritional coaching. Ethan flashed the kind of confident smile that probably worked wonders on his female clients. I've been helping Layla reach her wellness goals. I'll bet you have, I thought, but kept my expression neutral as I helped Elsie into her chair at the head of the table. The seating arrangement was telling. Layla positioned herself between Ethan and Piper, leaving me at the far end of the table next to my father and Elsie. It looked less like a family birthday party and more like a casual dinner where I happened to be the awkward extra guest. So, Ethan, my father said, making an effort at polite conversation, how long have you been training? About 5 years professionally? I got into it after my college football career ended. Ethan launched into a detailed explanation of his fitness philosophy, while Layla hung on every word like he was delivering a TED Talk. I focused on cutting Elsie's chicken parmesan into manageable pieces, trying to ignore the way Layla laughed at everything Ethan said. Her laugh was different with him, lighter, more genuine than I'd heard in months. Daddy, Elsie whispered, tugging on my sleeve, why isn't Mommy sitting with us? Before I could answer, Marjorie raised her wine glass. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced, her voice carrying across the table, "to finding joy wherever you can find it, and to people who remind us what it feels like to be truly alive." She looked directly at Layla and Ethan as she spoke. The table fell silent. Even Piper seemed to realize their mother had crossed a line, though she didn't look particularly bothered by it. "To Elsie," my father said firmly, raising his own glass. "The birthday girl. May your 7th year be filled with happiness and love." "To Elsie," they echoed, grateful for his intervention. The rest of the table murmured agreement, but the damage was done. Marjorie's toast had been a public endorsement of whatever was happening between my wife and her trainer, delivered at my daughter's birthday party. Ethan, to his credit, looked slightly uncomfortable. "This is really about Elsie," he said quietly to Layla. "Maybe I should—" "Don't be silly," Layla interrupted, loud enough for the table to hear. "You're practically family now, right, Quillen?" All eyes turned to me. I could feel my father's concerned gaze, Elsie's confusion, Piper's barely concealed anticipation of drama. This was a test, I realized. Layla was forcing me to either make a scene at my daughter's birthday party or publicly accept the presence of her obvious affair partner at family gatherings. "Everyone's welcome," I said evenly, "as long as Elsie's having a good time." Elsie looked between her mother and me with worried eyes. "Are you and Mommy still friends, Daddy?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I could see Layla tense, probably preparing some deflection about how adults sometimes have complicated relationships. "We're working on it, sweetheart," I said, smoothing her hair. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. But you'll always be my daddy, right? Always. No matter what happens, that will never change." I felt my father's hand squeeze my shoulder, a silent gesture of support that meant more than any words could have. After dinner, while the adults lingered over coffee and Elsie played with her new toys, I excused myself to use the restroom. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and made a quick voice memo. Saturday, 3:45 p.m. Giuseppe's restaurant. Ethan attended Elsie's birthday party as Layla's guest. Marjorie made toast referencing finding joy while looking at them. Public display of family support for their relationship. Elsie asking questions about parental relationship status. I was putting my phone away when Piper appeared beside me, her own phone in her hand. "Getting it all down for posterity?" she asked with a smirk. "Excuse me?" "The voice memos. The way you've been watching everyone all afternoon. You're building a case, aren't you?" I studied her face. Piper had always been the more perceptive of the two sisters, despite her party girl image. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Come on, Keelan, I'm not stupid. You think I haven't noticed how you document everything now? The way you save screenshots and take notes?" She held up her phone. "Two can play that game." She showed me her screen. It was a video she'd apparently just recorded of me making my voice memo in the hallway. "What's your point, Piper?" "My point is that my sister deserves to be happy. And if you're planning to make trouble for her, I'm going to make sure she has evidence of your obsessive behavior." I looked at this young woman, 27 years old, still living with her parents, working part-time at a boutique, and realized she saw herself as Layla's protector in some kind of romantic drama. "I want Layla to be happy too," I said quietly. "I also want my daughter to have a stable home environment. Sometimes those things conflict. Elsie will be fine. Kids are resilient. But Layla's been miserable for months, and now she's finally smiling again. If you really love her, you'll let her go." Before I could respond, she was gone, returning to the dining room with her phone tucked safely in her purse. I stood in the hallway for another moment, processing the conversation. Piper wasn't just supporting her sister. She was actively working against me, collecting her own evidence for whatever confrontation was coming. When I returned to the table, I found Ethan helping Elsie with a puzzle, his voice patient and kind, as he explained how to find the corner pieces. For a moment, I could see why Layla was attracted to him. He was good with kids, attentive, present in a way I apparently wasn't. But he was also sitting in my chair at my daughter's birthday party, being praised by my mother-in-law for bringing joy back into my wife's life. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" I asked Elsie, who was starting to look tired despite her excitement over her presence. "Can Ethan come see my room?" she asked innocently. "I want to show him my dollhouse." The request hit me like a physical blow. My daughter, who barely knew this man, was already incorporating him into her world, her home, her daily life. "Maybe another time," I said gently. "It's been a long day." As we gathered coats and leftover cake, my father pulled me aside. "Son, I don't know what's going on exactly, but I want you to know I'm here if you need anything. Anything at all." "Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that." "That little girl needs her father," he said quietly, glancing at Elsie, who was hugging everyone goodbye. "Don't let anyone make you forget that." On the drive home, Elsie fell asleep in her car seat, clutching a new stuffed elephant. In the rearview mirror, I could see Layla's car following us, with Ethan in the passenger seat where I should have been. At home, I carried Elsie upstairs and tucked her into bed, still in her party dress, because she looked so peaceful I didn't want to wake her. Downstairs, I could hear Layla and Ethan talking quietly in the kitchen. I went to my office and opened my laptop, adding the day's events to my growing documentation file. As I typed, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is David Chen, the attorney Marcus Lee referred you to. I have an opening Monday at 11 a.m. if you'd like to discuss your situation. Please confirm if you'd like to schedule a consultation." I stared at the message for a long moment, listening to my wife laugh at something another man had said in my kitchen on my daughter's birthday. I typed back, "Yes, I'll be there." Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it Legal Consultation Confidential.